Hey guys, what's up? It is prime time here for a Protoss vs Terran 1v1 ladder game that I literally just played, and I really think this covers a lot of the different aspects of the build order that I want to show you. I'm currently doing 3 build orders, potentially a 4th with the Voidray 4-gate all-in that you saw in the previous video, or didn't see, but whatever. It's not something I've really tested, so don't go crazy with that on ladder thinking, well, if I do it enough, I'll win, because that might not be true. So yeah, this is one of the more tried and true tested builds that I really do like, and there's a few reasons for it, and we'll get to see everything and anything in this video. By the way, just as a disclaimer, this may be a 3-part or 2-part video because I am now allowed to make these videos as long as I want, but I feel like if the video says it's 80 minutes long, it might discourage people from clicking on it. But we'll see. We'll see what happens. Anyway, let's introduce the players. In the bottom right of Entomb Valley, we have Rebuffering. And did he say good luck, have fun? Yes, he did. He said GG, good luck. Alright. And in the top right of Entomb Valley, yes, it's the same map, it didn't change. Let me bring up the production tab. How do you do it? Yeah. Is myself, Primetime, and actually I played in a Zeke tournament, that's Z33K, because they're cool like that, last night, and those games are actually casted, and they are on Twitch TV still. I'm not gonna, I could link it, but whatever. They were like a 5-hour long stream, because the tournament went on forever, and it was a $5 first place prize tournament, but it was fun. A lot of the games were casted and commentated on and whatnot, so they were pronouncing my name O Prime, which honestly, I can't blame them for that. But regardless, we're gonna see that, actually, let me back up. I hope you guys enjoy looking at the production tab twice in a row, but what we see right here is a standard 9 Pylon, and regardless of the map, with this build, I will always scout after the first gateway. And just notice the first chrono boost going down after the Pylon completes, which is very standard. I'm gonna rally the 12th worker to build the gateway, but I'm gonna use another chrono before I even build the gateway. It just times out very well and nicely, and basically you just get a little bit more workers. The reason why you don't do this in PvP is because this will delay your cyber. However, in this particular build, it actually doesn't matter that the cyber is a little bit delayed. Anyway, the gas is going to go down on 14. It's actually quite important, and I have a feeling I'm going to be backing up quite a bit in this as well. We see the chrono is going to be finishing up right about now, and then the next probe gets added on, and the chrono's going to be finishing up right about now. And then I'm going to build a gas before I queue up the next probe on 14. So that is actually kind of important, because if you don't do this right now, it'll delay your first Stalker, and it will delay your WarpGate a little bit. Nothing critical, but still, I figured I would throw that out there. Also, I'm going to stop building probes at 16 supply. This is for 2 reasons. A, it's so I can get a Sentry sooner, and we're going to see that happen. And B, if he were to, let's say this is a 2-player map, and I was guaranteed to scout him within a reasonable amount of time, and I see that he is proxy raxing me, I can build a Zealot, and then build a Pylon, and then just defend from there, and not even build the Nexus. But the important thing is having this 2 supply room to build that Zealot. Otherwise, I skip the Zealot in every other instance, even when I don't see an expansion, or I see gas, double gas, whatever. One more thing, I do this in every map with a watchtower in the middle. I feel like something that people don't realize is that with these 4-player maps, it's the same distance from here to here as it is from here to here. Okay, they didn't mess up on the balancing on these maps. It is the same rush distance from one base to the next, regardless of cross, diagonal, or whatever. So that's why I would recommend tagging the watchtower just for any shenanigans that could be going on. Also, let's say your opponent is in the bottom left in this particular game. If I scout him first, he's going to be thinking that I'm either here or here, because most players go counterclockwise or clockwise with their scouting workers. So he would expect me to be in the bottom right, top left. If you followed all that, congratulations, you have passed. Otherwise, sorry, I'm going too fast. Anyway, let's continue this game because it is not going too fast. Assimilator finishing up, gonna throw 3 in there. And our red Terran is walled off. Now, on 4-player maps, some Protoss players will scout after their first Pylon just to ensure that, or just basically to have a better chance of scouting their opponent. If I were to scout gas, I would know early pressure's coming, and if you do see gas, you know early pressure's coming. It's that simple, really. You don't know if it's going to be an all-in, and you don't know what is going to happen, but something will happen, because otherwise it's just going to delay their expansion for no reason. Now my probe is going to be scouting up here. It won't obviously get up here. His Marine's actually going to cut me off. If you see this happening, actually, it's really a tough call. If he has got a Marine out, chances are he's got a depot. So just veer off. Either try to retreat or go to the natural to see if he's got a command center. Now my Nexus is going down very early, as is standard with this build. We're going to see a Sentry come and a WarpGate research start. And note, a Pylon has been produced right after the Nexus. Usually I like to build this around here so I can warp in units on the low ground. However, in this game, the probe that built the Nexus ran to scout the natural, which I did see he did not have a natural, as you can see right here. So I just had to build a Pylon here. Just a minor inconvenience, but an inconvenient truth nonetheless. Now we do have a reactor on the barracks. We're going to see red rebufferings build develop as the game progresses, but I just want to keep you informed step by step on what I'm doing. Because I see that he hasn't expanded, I'm going to chrono boost off this one gateway and just build Stalkers. Now, let's say you've got this Gaslight, you might have to get a Zealot instead of all Stalkers, but hey, that could be better depending on what your opponent's doing. But in this case, I had the gas, and I would just recommend getting Stalkers. It's just safer. Nonetheless, my Nexus will not be cancelled. That's something to note. You can defend this as long as you play it properly. Now, before, meaning like when I used to ladder last season, as this season I've sort of slowed down a lot, I would just chrono boost off this one gateway, keep making units, and just stay on one gateway for quite some time. However, I would definitely recommend adding one more gateway while chrono boosting off this one, as you can see right here. If I were to see an expansion here, I would just make 2 Stalkers with 1 Sentry. And I would also, just make sure you have good Sentry control. Don't let them in your base for scouting. I would also add on 2 more gateways after this WarpGate research gets to 100 seconds, because gateways take almost 60 seconds to make, so it times out well. That's what I'm trying to say. So you'll have 3 WarpGates when that finishes. Alright, we do see rebuffering going for Banshees, and most players that go Banshees are either going to get Banshees so they can go all in, which means they don't necessarily need to get Cloak, or they get Cloak to do some harassment, or they get Cloak and do an all in after they do harassment. We're going to find out what rebuffering does, but nonetheless, we have the 3 gateways, and just to be safe, just because of Cloak Banshees, you do want to get a Robo. We do see gas 1 and 2, or I should guess technically 2 and 3 going down around the 6:30, 6:40 minute mark. Because I've had to cut a little bit of workers, I would normally get this at 6:30. Instead, you see it's closer to 6:40. Anyway, also Pylon's going down. Wherever this probe is where I'm going to put a Pylon next, but Pylons are going to go down to scout for drops, even though this is unlikely for them to go in from, like, a direction. Obviously this is much more likely up here. I still like to have those because I have enough Pylon power grid, I guess, is one way to put it, in the base and whatnot for buildings that I need. Twilight Council going down. This Twilight Council should be built after these 2 gas. Any time after is where you should build the Twilight Council, and we'll see what this is for. And the Robo is what you want to get after the Twilight. Now, I do want to mention one small gap, one small window that Terran players can take advantage of in this situation. If you were to send this Banshee out right now, he would probably get to my... Well, okay. If this was 10 seconds in the future, if you were to send the Banshee out, he would get to my base about when he has Cloak. Instead, he waits for a second Banshee, and that allows me barely enough time to get an Observer out. So there is a small window where you might have to run around with your probes for 5-10 seconds so you can get your Observer out. The important thing is not just let the Banshee sit there and take pot shots at your workers all day, because that very well may lose you the game. So here comes the second Banshee. He's going to move out with those two. I'm not psychic. That's not why I know this. It's because I just played this game. Charge is what you want to get first. Now this seems very odd, but with Blink Stalkers, you lose to barracks pushes and basically a lot of all-ins, because Stalkers aren't strong enough alone, even with Blink. Observer coming out first out of the Robo. Basically, Observers are what you want to make, and you want to make a lot of them. It's really whatever you prefer. Like, because what I'm trying to say is whatever amount you want to make is the amount you should make. I tend to make anywhere from 3 to 5 observers, depending on the map, depending on what's been going on. But we'll see what uses I make out of those as this game progresses. And as soon as charge is completed, you do want to get Blink, and you do want to chrono that out when you can. You don't necessarily need to use like 18 chronos on this thing, but you do want to use quite a few. And rebuffering still is not expanded, so we're going to see how this charge with a 5 gate, which is now just coming up, holds up against rebufferings all-in with Siege Tanks, Cloak Banshees, and Marines. It looks like he doesn't have Stim or Combat Shields, neither is he getting either of those upgrades, so he's really going to rely on the DPS of the Banshees and the Siege Tanks. So essentially, how some Terran players will play this is get more than just 2 Banshees, in which case you really want to make sure you have enough Stalkers, because if they kill your Stalkers, you're kind of screwed. So, right now I have 6 units, which is not too many, and the amount that he has, actually let's look at the army size right now. He does have a lot more, which is one way to put it. Units tab is a different story though. So we can see that instead of maybe getting a couple extra gateways faster, and I will talk about these two things in a second, instead of getting 2 or 3 more gateways faster, I built more probes, I got greedy, and now I'm paying for it, essentially is what's happening. By the way, I do have a lot of Stalkers out of place. It looks like I've selected these though. Regardless, we do see a supply block. Those Banshees did kill a Pylon here, which is really going to hurt me quite a bit right now. But basically, all I'm trying to say is because we overproduce probes, we can afford to lose some, and we will see that unfold now. Although it is really not preferable, and if you can avoid it at all costs, do so. Banshees are just poking in right now. He's trying to supply block me further, but it looks like he's going to lose 1 Banshee for his efforts. These Marines are pretty vulnerable, even though these Siege Tanks are really giving a lot of supporting fire. 1 more Banshee enters the fray, as I think Husky likes to say. And essentially, my Zealots get baited in, but Blink is not done, so we only have Charge to really use as the only ability that we have. And probes are being pulled. I don't think I really needed to do this, and my probes just got massacred, so I don't know if it was the best decision, but look at the unit tab right now, which I will get out. He has taken quite a circumstantial, I don't think that's the word, quite a sizable worker lead, especially since he has mules, and that's really why it's sizable. Now, before we continue this attack, actually, let's let this play through. Bold Siege Tank positioning. We do have a Robo, so if we see Siege Tanks, just make an Immortal. We do see 1 Observer, 2 Observer, 3 Observer, all chilling out right here. Now that this attack's been thwarted, I would suggest moving these about the map. And typically what I like to do with Observers is maybe have 1 outside his base over here, have 1 outside here, have 1 over here to spot for drops. Essentially, anywhere where you want to be informed of where his army could be, that's where your Observers go. And then if he has Cloak Banshees, keep 1 with your base as well. So this Banshee will escape barely, but I do want to show you the follow-up of this build, or whatever you want to say. Now, we did see I had 5 gateways in production about when that attack was leaving his base. After you get your 5 gateways, even after you get your next 2 started, you do want to get Double Forge, and that is a pretty large part of this build. We will see Blink queued up eventually. And where is it? Where is it? So yeah, continue to make Observers. Should have moved this out about the map earlier. There's Blink. You really want to chrono these out because some attacks will require both abilities. 2 Forges going down, so there we go. And the next gas has actually been added on around the 9:30-minute mark, we'll call it. This is not too precise. Normally you can get this earlier because you won't be getting all in. But the 4th gas is actually optional. Most Protoss vs. Terran builds require it. However, what I'm going to be trying to do with this 4th gas is go for DTs and then get a Warp Prism to basically actually use the DTs in his base. And that's actually, I would either recommend doing that or getting a 4th gas so you can start saving up gas for High Templar earlier than later. But you don't have to go for High Templar before your 3rd base. So, and before you really worry about High Templar, you should be worrying about getting more gateways anyway. Because the total gateway count you want is 8, and if he wasn't going to attack right here, instead of making units, I would make 3 more gateways, and then I can decide: do I want to go DT? Do I want to get a quicker expo? Do I want to have a party? Do I want to have High Templar? So, those are the options that you can make. I would recommend going for a little DT harass while taking a 3rd base because, well, actually, when you start the Dark Shrine, you can also probably go for the 3rd. If you wait for the DT harass to commence, it'll be like 3 minutes because the DT Shrine takes a while to make, takes a while to get there, blah, 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 blah. So my mistake in this attack, as you saw, was suiciding one of my probes, so try not to have that happen. And that was essentially my only mistake so far this game. And you can see this battle still was close. A way for you to have a better chance at fighting that is having an observer over here, and then cutting observers and making immortals earlier. Also, chrono boost these 2 forges when you can, and that's where a lot of your gas is going to be going. So do not skimp on making zealots because you're going to need the gas, even though it seems like ChargeLot Blink Stalker doesn't need it. It's really the backbone of the upgrades that do require it. Now that my 3rd gas is up, I hopefully will... Okay, right now I'm basically trying to get my probe count up, and essentially about a minute and a half from now is where we would be. Like now... I said that way wrong. Basically, if he's in an attack, this Dark Shrine would be coming up quite a bit earlier. Actually, a lot earlier. We can see this one observer patrolling back and forth, so I did see these Banshees. I just want to quickly make that side note because observer placement is critical. It is important. And yeah, so the 2 more gateways coming up. I do want to get 1 more gateway before I expand, just because you want to make sure you're safe and you want to make sure you have a high gateway count just to basically defend yourself against anything. Obviously that is depending on, the game at hand, and maybe if your opponent takes a really early 3rd, you can get away with only having like 6 or 7 gateways, or even 5, it really depends on how passive the Terran's going to be. Warp Prism's moving out. Pretty bold Warp Prism moving right in front of his army, but it will get there undetected. Oh, what is it doing? I don't know. It will get there undetected. And DT Shrine is almost done. Plus 2 upgrades are going down. And the Warp Prism is going to be moving into his base in a second. So right now, what you want to be doing is essentially sitting back on your 8 gateways, chrono boost these upgrades, and eventually you can go for High Templar tech, but it really requires more gas than you probably realize to do so. Right now we have Zealots and DTs moving into his base. No missile turret, which is convenient. And really what you want to do with DTs, I'm sure you guys know this, is just separate them. Put one maybe in his mineral line, put one over here doing whatever he wants to do. Usually Terrans will have one missile turret like right about here, which does sort of also cover their natural. If not, they'll have it even closer to their natural. So I wouldn't really recommend going down the ramp. Just basically, you can get 3 or 4 DTs in their base, all spread out. Make them take 3 or 4 scans, obviously, to clean those up. ChargeLots add a nice little supplement to that attack, because if he doesn't respond with SCV pull fast enough, you can get a lot of kills. And ChargeLots aren't too expensive, so it's nice to just use them at will like that. 3rd base is now coming up. Usually I would recommend taking that base at around 11 minutes, 12 minutes, something like that. But because I've obviously had to hold off and all in, this is going to be coming a lot later. upgrades still being chrono boosted, and Twilight or Templar Archives can come basically whenever you want to make that transition. I do want to emphasize though, Blink Stalker ChargeLot is good enough to basically last you the entire game. As long as the Terran player isn't like 100 army supply or greater, ChargeLot Blink Stalker can basically kill whatever. And basically the micro for that, which I don't really think it occurs this game, just because of how this game plays out. Essentially, it's very simple micro though. And all you need is 2 units. You get your ChargeLots and your Blink Stalkers in a ball. You A-move into their army. They're going to be kiting back and back and back. And then as soon as they start to kite back, blink your Stalkers forward. And the reason for that is because you want the Stalkers shooting as much as possible while the Zealots are taking the shots. And you just essentially continue that micro all the way until their army dies or until your ChargeLots die. And if your ChargeLots die, you just blink your Stalkers back and just warp in more units or whatnot. Now I think I'm gonna actually have to show you guys another video of this particular build, because I don't really get to show off a lot of the counterattacking and sort of use of pylons that I typically will need to use to make this build viable. This build is very macro and micro intensive, but you can afford to really not play it too perfectly, and it can still work out for you. So that's the nice thing about it. You can completely crush your opponent if you play it perfectly, but even if you don't, it's nothing that's gonna lose the game. So I guess I'm gonna have to show another video of how this typically plays out, because usually I've got like pylons everywhere, and then I can warp in ChargeLots to make some sort of sandwich when my opponent moves out, and just get a really good surround and whatnot. So, however, as you can see, this build is still on 8 gateways. The only reason really why I lose games with this build is because I don't make the transition to adding on more gateways fast enough. Yes, you can really spend a lot of the income that you make on 3 bases with 8 gateways, because Stalkers are kind of expensive, but once you make the transition to High Templar, and once you sort of get a high probe count on your 3rd base, you really need to add 4 or 6 even more gateways, and that way you can keep up with your income. Now, something I did not show you guys was Rebuffering actually pulled all of his SCVs from his main base to his natural, so he actually had like 16 SCVs at his natural, and for some reason he never brought them back. So now what he's doing is bringing them all with his army to do a 3rd all-in. So we're going to go ahead and see how this pans out. Remember, I do have Dark Templar, and a great way to slow down a Terran is to send 1 DT at a time at their army. Rebuffering's not having any of that though. He's got a Raven, and so that's convenient for him, I suppose. And just making sure you can't get a 3rd base. He did try to take it. I think if you guys were paying attention to the minimap, you probably saw a red block appear then disappear. No, it's not David Blaine. It is the power of a DT and a Zealot. Regardless, here we go. Rebuffering, sieging up once more. SCV is getting shredded as upgrades really show through here, as rebuffering has nothing, and you will always have better upgrades than your opponent in this stage of the game and going forward. Just because Chrono Boost and Double Forge is essentially as fast as upgrades you can get, and still manage to stay alive. And the reason why you can afford such fast upgrades is because you're not relying on spending money into Colossus or High Templar tech. And hopefully High Templar do make an appearance. Okay, there it is. So, by the way, one basic rule which I would suggest you guys live by is, if you want to go for Storm, make the High Templar, then get the Storm research. And the reason for this is because if you get Storm upgrade first, even when you make the High Templar, even if it's done, you still can't Storm. Your High Templar need the energy. So make the High Templar, then go for Storm, and if in between the time of you getting High Templar and getting the Storm upgrade started, your opponent tries to attack you, at least you can make Archons instead of being able to do nothing. Or make fewer Archons, I suppose. And, so yeah, basically I think you guys know how this game's going to pan out from here. This is pretty much how to play this build in a super defensive manner, because your opponent's going to keep all in you. And the reason why I do this build instead of my favorite build, which is the Immortal Double Robo thingy, is essentially because on maps where it's really easy for your opponent to drop you with medevacs, I like to have a high gateway count and fast units. And having Stalker ChargeLot is essentially as fast as you can get as Protoss without having Phoenix. So it's a nice fast unit composition, and you can warp in units when you need them on demand, which is also why it's good to have extra gateways. And you can basically deflect drops super easily. And so yeah, and basically when you're on 3 bases, you can transition however you want out of this. It's not like, okay, you can get Colossus now, I guess, because I'm going to allow it. Once you have 3 bases, even if your third's only somewhat saturated, making a change into Colossus or Hard Templar is totally cool. You can survive. Even your 8 gateways will keep you alive, I would assume, unless you wait too long to make the transition. And you have tons of money. Anyway, so this game is basically straightforward from here on out. I make Protoss Death Ball, and I go kill him. And then he complains about Protoss being imbalanced. So instead of showing the remainder of this game in normal speed, let's X out of that. Production tab, we see the Robotics Bay coming. I also, if you're going to make a late transition to Colossus with a strong economy, I would always recommend getting another Robo so you can get 2 Colossus at a time. It's crazy. It's almost as crazy as Double Rainbow, but not quite. Also, having observers instead of, like, I had this observer here, so if you were to attack into my 3rd base, I could spot it. Once you take your next base, push it out here or something, so you can spot for other stuff coming at you. Pylons are going up across the map, all across the sky. Gonna try to get one right here. Warp Prism is being stalked, like Chris Hansen can never help. And just more Pylons going on. So, I mean, normally how Stalker ChargeLot would pan out is your opponent's got a big ball of bio, and you have to warp in units basically on all different sides of him, and then just get a nice surround. In that sort of circumstance, you will crush the bio force. If you attack him head on, you can still win the fight because upgrades really make a huge difference, and then blinking forward is also very, very key. But yeah, the more Zealot run-bys as counterattacks, if he moves out, or the more Zealot surrounds really make a difference. So yeah, that about covers this game. This is basically like the safest build that I do in PvT. And we're going to go ahead and see a maxed out Protoss army with huge upgrades wipe out a very small Terran army with very good upgrades. High Templar, all they have to do is feedback. They're sad, sad High Templar. Yeah, that's about it, guys. Hope you guys enjoy. As always, also, more gateways adding on at the end. It's better. You'd be surprised how long it takes to make an army if it gets wiped out. At basically any point of the game, if you don't have the production. So. My voice is tired, but I'm going to do one more game. 5th video of the night. And I'm probably going to show another video of this build when it's more standard. And actually I have a game like that, so I guess I could just do that in a day or 2 from now. This is a pretty cool build to do. Pretty fun. Very safe. If you're not happy with medevacs, do this build. But yeah. Maps like Antigua, Entombed, I'm trying to think of other stuff. Condemned Ridge, I guess, even though it's really big, but maybe this would be even better. Are all good maps, so hope you guys enjoyed this video. Hope you got better, and good luck on ladder. One more PvT coming up. I want to do PvP, but, you know, life, right? That's all I gotta say. APM. Oh yeah, by the way, for those of you who didn't know, EPM is now APM, APM is now EPM. Blizzard did that to screw with you. What are you gonna do?